Jeff Cavaliere from Athlean-X is a great source of information, and he serves a lot of value to everybody on YouTube who's interested in fitness. Now, he said something about a tennis elbow and a kettlebell swing. Now, I'm not a physiotherapist, but I do have a lot of experience in kettlebells and working with clients. So let's see what Jeff said. Greetings, Petran. Gregory from Lebe here. We're all about kettlebells. So if you are into kettlebells, like the video and consider subscribing. Now let me preface this with a very important disclaimer. I believe that Jeff has served so much value to everybody on YouTube that really is into training and hypertrophy and moving their bodies. He taught us so much. So the idea is not to attack Jeff. The idea is to ask some questions, because I'm not a therapist, so I don't know certain aspects that he mentions, but I know what a tennis elbow is, and I know what many people do wrong when the kettlebell swing, and I see some aspects that I want to share. So let's listen to Jeff first.
Instead, we want to grab this. You use a dumbbell.
What I think is interesting is that even Jeff does it, moving the weights with a slightly rounded back. You know, I'm exaggerating a little bit. Yes, you can tell me that. But, you know, we say treat the kettlebell like it's always loaded. So move it always with your hips and not with your lower back or with your back. You want to generate the power and strength from your hips, even if you move the weights around.
But a kettlebell works perfectly here. And the exercise that you want to start incorporating 3 times a week, if you already have a raging case of tennis elbow, believe it or not, is a kettlebell swing. And why this works is because we need to try to start training the body to work as the kinetic chain that's intended to be. Meaning that this spot here that was overloaded, that was thrown the responsibility of maintaining a weight that it couldn't handle because the rest of the body wasn't participating, we need to start to reintroduce the rest of the body to that move. And the best way to do it is to take it from the side and bring it to the front, which still causes the same stress here at that point of the elbow.
So what I understand is that many people are really stopping any movements in the forearm. We're going to take a look at what a tennis elbow is. So many people are advised to stop moving their arms. And what I think, what he proposes as a solution, which I'm not quite sure of, is that you can use your forearms in spite of having a tennis elbow. Because what I don't really see, but maybe I just need more education in that regard, because like I said, I'm not a therapist, is that I don't know if a swing will cure your tennis elbow. What we have seen in practice is that people can train with the kettlebell in spite of a tennis elbow. So let's keep going.
And give it the support that it needs with the other muscles. So what the kettlebell swing does.
You see that? Woo! Jeff, my man. Wow. You see that? Yep. Yeah, I know sometimes I'm exaggerating. No, I'm not actually. I want you to lift with your hips and not with your back.
What it does is it loads us into hip flexion, right? We're getting into this hip flexion position and then allowing the extension of the hips to assist the weight as it comes up.
Another thing that I learned, just as a side note, from a very great CrossFit Instagram account is just demonstrate the lift first and then give the cues in the coaching. This is sometimes that I don't do. Sometimes I just keep talking, but I really try to hone in on that specialty and that focus of just letting you learn with your eyes first and then cueing your ears.
Keeping the isometric control here, but again, offloading this and giving it some additional support. So if we can continue to do something to work on getting over the injury rather than putting everything away, packing up your gym bag, going home and staying home and hoping it gets better, or worse, rubbing on it, icing it, ultrasounding it, throwing a brace on, everything I said not to do in that last video.
Even though some institutions say that you should, throw some ice on it, rub it, or, just stop moving altogether for it to regenerate. And that's something that even Professor McGill says, that if you have a problem with your spine, one thing that you might want to try is to maybe just stop re-engaging that movement that causes those pain receptors to fire and he made a great analogy to, for example, if you have a burn on your lip or something, then you don't want to just always touch it or, grab it with your teeth or something. You really want to let it be. So yeah, interesting concepts that are clashing. And he's a therapist, so very important. I want to highlight this again. He's a therapist. I'm not talking about therapy or rehabilitation because that's one of his specialties. We're just strictly talking about how the swing could help and what my expertise, how I can maybe help you and share some additional value.
That's not going to be a long-term solution. That's why you keep going back and getting this problem over and over and over again, because you're never working on actually strengthening the muscles that need strengthening and incorporating the entire kinetic chain.
And yeah, but strengthening the swing does not strengthen your forearm grip. On the contrary, the idea is, well, I have to be more exact. It doesn't strengthen your forearm flexors. What it does is the swing profits from your extensors who don't have a lot of strength but can do a lot of work for a long time. So we profit from the work capacity of your extensors, and just maybe they do get some work, but the idea is to work your hips and keep your arms as loose as possible.
So what we
Jeff.
do is we start with two hands on the kettlebell. Right, in this position here, you can see that we have to have this neutral wrist position, which requires activation of the extensors.
And interesting that he turned the wrist towards you. We have one client, going to talk about it even more in a later section of this video, where he was doing swings with the front orientation of the wrist, and that completely fired his elbow. So that's why we started incorporating the back orientation of the wrist, which I'm going to show in a second.
Of the forearm. So if I'm in here and I perform a swing like
the triangle's missing. Illuminati's missing, Jeff. For those of you who don't know, on our channel, we always say you want to step into the triangle first when you engage with the kettlebell. Doesn't matter if it's an 8 kilo or 48 kilo. You want to take a step back, and then your feet form the bottom of the triangle, and the kettlebell forms the top of the triangle. So you want to engage in the triangle first. So Jeff doesn't do it. So hey, Jeff. I love this.
Load up in here, load up posteriorly. You can see at the top.
See, that's what a lot of people do who are not used to swinging kettlebells. His arm is really straight, so you want to keep it loose. I'll take a look at it in a second.
Driven by the hips.
Yeah, most of. Yeah.
But the arm is staying in this extended position.
Yeah.
And the wrist is staying in this extended position, which is creating that stress, but the good form of stress to that extensor tendon wad up here in the elbow, and maintaining the mechanics in the support from below.
Which can be, I'm not saying that when you grab a kettlebell, even with a finger grip, with a very loose grip, is not granting some good stress for your tendons, which are inflamed. I'm not saying this. The only thing that I'm saying, where I'm not sure of, I'm just asking a question. I don't know if it is a solution that you should engage in order to eliminate the tennis elbow. I believe it is a solution that you can engage in to train with weights or train your hips and your posterior chain in spite of your tennis elbow. Now, what I want you to see is the following. A tennis elbow is a condition that causes pain around the outside of the elbow, most of the time in this particular area. And it comes from the idea that some tennis players have develop this kind of condition because of the backhand, right? So when you give a backhand with the racket, this is what's happening, right? You have a lot of action in your forearm. So you have the extensors and you have the flexors. And because it's up here, your extensors might be a little sensitive as well as the tendons. So it happens after overuse or repeated action of the muscles of the forearm. That's what we need to know, near the elbow joint, right? So that's what happens. And so how can we treat the tennis elbow? Tennis elbow would get better without treatment, a self-limiting condition, but there are treatments that may improve symptoms and speed up recovery. Now, one of the aspects that Jeff is saying don't do it, they're saying do it. You should rest your injured arm and stop any activity that's causing the problem. Maybe what they could add is for a certain time, not forever, short term. So now let's switch to the exercise. What I want to show you. Now, the idea of a general sense of a swing, we don't want to get too deep into it now, is having a loose arm. I talked about the ABC, the arm-body connection, how important it is. Maybe bring the kettlebell up to chest level. And what I'm gonna show you right now is a so-called single-handed hybrid swing. So, I do feel some minor activity of my extensors, but my arms are like hooks. They grab the kettlebell, but I grab it in a so-called finger grip, not in a crush grip where I have full activation of my forearm muscles, in a easy and subtle finger grip. Because like I mentioned, I want to work my ABC, connect the arm to my body so I can focus on the muscles that have to do the work, and that is the posterior chain. All right, so hamstrings, glutes, lower back. That's what the swing is for. From experience, we can also say that some of our clients, they suffered from the tennis elbow when we were doing a front orientation of the wrist. As you can see, this might cause some problem because your elbow is not able to flex when it's in the backswing position. However, this may add or give you some benefit because the arm is like a spring then, okay? Loads, and then once the weight comes up, it's maybe easier to clean it or snatch it. So maybe sometimes a technique that I use when I work with heavier weights. But people said it flares up their elbow. What helped is the back orientation. Let me demonstrate it again. And now even if I switch to the hand-to-hand swing, same thing. So what I would say is, yes, if you have tennis elbow and you want to work your posterior chain and you still want to work out, the kettlebell swing is a great exercise because you can still maybe activate your forearms to a very slight degree and still get a workout in spite of the pain that you experience. That's beautiful. We've even had some clients who've had shoulder problems and they were able to press the kettlebell because of the biomechanical efficiency. When you work with the kettlebell, you don't grab it, you actually do natural movements. So that's why you can have a pretty fairly relaxed wrist and still work your body. So in that case, yes, in spite of the tennis elbow, you can work with kettlebells. Yet when it comes to using the swing as a solution, I'm not really sure, and I would probably be on that side where I doubt that the swing will be the best solution. But like I mentioned, I'm not a therapist.
And on a final note, what sometimes beginners do wrong, a common mistake in the swing, is that people are grabbing the weight firmly and they do not engage properly with the hip. So the kettlebell does drop, they do engage in some form of a hinge, but they completely burn out the forearm because that's instinctive behavior. As soon as we grab something with our hand, our brain is telling our muscles in our arms to fire and really contract because we're handsy creatures. So we move everything with our hands. It's a common mistake when we learn the kettlebell swing with beginners. So that's maybe one thing where I would be careful in including the kettlebell swing if you have a tennis elbow. You might want to talk to a coach first and learn the proper mechanics, because maybe if you do this common mistake, it may make your tennis elbow worse.
The world of kettlebells is dominated by two training styles called hardstyle and kettlebell sport. Although vastly different in nature, they have been proven to work and give you the most bang for your buck whenever you pick up a kettlebell, if you apply the technique correctly and are able to differentiate between the two. Now for beginners, this task might be understandably confusing. With our upcoming hybrid style masterclass, in 100 lessons, you will embrace the emergence of the hybrid style movement, where
you will learn how to combine the best of both worlds and become a master at handling the kettlebell. Join the next revolution in kettlebell training now and sign up for our early birds list to stay up to date and receive an exclusive discount in release week. Link is in the description.